Hi! I wanted to do another video because again, I'm trying to challenge myself to do things that feel hard for me. So for those who don't know, my name is Nancy. I am the owner of Astrology and Angel Mediums and also the intuitive practitioner behind it. I'm going to apologize if you hear background noise. I have animals and a family, so it's a snowy day here in Colorado today, but I wanted to do something that I find a lot of fun, and that is shadow work, reading in a sense. So I don't know what I'm going to call this exactly, but I think that maybe we'll focus on what sort of things we need to work on, or what kind of messages are coming through as far as what we need to be aware of in our shadow work. So I already have the cards shuffled and all the decks that I want to use today out. So I'm just going to start pulling some cards and then we'll see kind of what messages we're getting. So, all right, anger and chains. Oh, emotional awakening, intuition, and following your heart. We'll do some tarot cards in a minute. Step into your power. The weeping wound. Born, every day is a new opportunity. And then let's see, we'll pull we'll do, I think that's 2 cards. Yep, these are so thick I can't tell. So we have the Devil. We have Strength. We have the Chariot. Am I getting all majors over here? And then the 3 of Wands, which I think I got the 3 of Wands yesterday as well with what I pulled. Okay, so this is a fun little spread of things. I actually feel like I want to pull another one of these. Hopefully we're all still in frame. I was trying to kind of figure out, since I have my phone really elevated, I can't really look. And I don't want to sit here and go back and forth. So all right, well, the very first card that we have here is Anger and Chains, and hopefully the glare isn't too bad. I was trying to use some lighting because it is snowing and overcast today. To me, this really can represent a reminder of whatever it is that maybe we haven't processed. And I think for a lot of people, they struggle with understanding that it's okay to be angry, that it's okay to feel emotions that maybe are a little bit heavier, that are a little bit harder to kind of process or talk about. And I really like to look at it as anger is how a lot of people tend to cry, if that makes sense. It's a much more easily accepted emotion, especially for masculine energies. I know for a lot of people, it's we kind of default into anger because that's something that's a little bit more understood, or something that's been displayed for us in a lot bigger ways. And I think with Anger and Chains is that it's really saying where is your anger really leading you to? What is it that's keeping you stuck? What is it that maybe is making you feel as though it's hard for you to kind of release and let go, and to really open yourself up to where that anger is really stemming from. Sometimes anger is just anger, and there's nothing wrong with that. Again, I'm not one of these, it's oh, there's good or bad emotions. I'm very big on we have to just let ourselves feel how we feel. And I think that all emotions are valid. We're here on Earth School to kind of feel the whole spectrum of human emotion. And so there are going to be moments where you are angry. There are going to be moments where you are struggling with what it is that, maybe is currently, you're facing, or whatever your situation has going on for you. But I think with this is that it's really reminding you to not burrow down that anger so much that it chains you and it keeps you stuck. It keeps you in a place of never really feeling settled, or always feeling backed into a corner, and feeling very defensive, or maybe even challenged to open yourself up about what it is that you're so angry about, and where that anger truly stems from. So next, I'm going to talk about heart. I'm not gonna be able to pick it up. All right, so this card is all about emotional awakening, intuition, following your heart. And I think it's interesting that out of, you know, a lot of these things, and we even have like stuff that kind of really goes with it, like the weeping wound card. I think that this is really asking you to kind of reconnect to your heart in the sense of giving yourself permission to maybe allow yourself to really truly feel. And again, an emotional awakening can be something as simple as just really recognizing and honoring what it is that you're really truly feeling, where your emotions are really stemming from, and giving yourself permission to just say, it's safe for me to feel how I feel. I don't have to explain how I feel to anyone. I don't have to have a valid reason for how I feel. I think, you know, especially in modern times and modern society, where we're being told to just kind of rush to the next thing and kind of distract ourselves. And we don't always allow ourselves proper time or proper space to really honor how we actually feel and what we have going on. And I think what this is that it's really saying, connect back to your intuition, connect back to your heart, connect back to that place within yourself that says it's okay for me to trust this part of myself, and it's safe for me to open up and say, this is what I want to do, and this is what I love, and this is what speaks to me. And I think that this is just a reminder for you to just reconnect to that part of yourself, of giving yourself permission to release the anger and the chain so that your heart can really feel free. All right, next one I think I pulled was Death Cap, which is about stepping into your power. It's interesting because I'm seeing a lot of like heart and lion and, you know, things like that. And I think it's very much this, and we have the Strength card. So maybe there's like a Leo kind of energy going on here, which I know astrologically with everything kind of going on, we're getting a lot of this kind of opposition with Leo, with, you know, the sun being in Aquarius, Pluto being Aquarius, other signs, other planets moving into Aquarius. So maybe like there is this kind of sense of we've been, you know, not focusing on the self in some ways. And this is, again, this is kind of asking you to kind of step back into you, step back into that part of yourself that maybe you have forgotten. Now, this is a new deck, so I don't really know too much about what's in the book. So I'm going to kind of just look and see if there's any kind of fun energy that this talks about. So here we have, let's see, this is all about the deadly amanita mushroom. And it really, you know, has been used for like medicinal potentials and things like that. Some people use it for different medicine, but it is very poisonous. And I think that this is really asking about, or really requiring us to kind of step into our powerful being. And sometimes I think we get a little distracted by the humanness of it all, of like just being a person, and we just become very like caught up in like what we need to do. We become a little bit timid, shy, we kind of break down, we kind of quiet ourselves down. And I think that this is kind of telling you to step back into your power, realize that your sensitivity or your emotions are your strength, that what you feel is a part of what your soul's here to experience and what it is that really needs to happen for you. So maybe it's time for you to start recognizing and understanding what your strength is, and start expressing your needs and your wishes, especially when it comes to your interpersonal connections and relationships with those that are around you. Okay. Next I have Weeping Wound. It's interesting because I tend to pull this card quite often for myself. And I think that it's a beautiful display of how it can feel whenever we're like a person and we're in our relationships and we have things kind of going on. And this is saying, hey, you're not your wounds. Even me doing this is definitely one of my wounds, of being perceived, of being seen, of being judged, of messing up in a public space, of making a mistake. And I think with the Weeping Wound card is that it's really saying like we have to move past our hurts. And I think with the anger and the chains and, you know, the connection to the heart and stepping into our power, one of the biggest proponents that it may hold us back or that may challenge us in different ways is that weeping wound, this sense of, you know, I'm supposed to be doing this, or I should be this way, or, you know, those perceptions and those judgments, those ideas, or even just like, you know, different things that we carry, whether it's intentional or not. When people say something like as an offhand remark, and then we tend to completely take that in and, you know, create a wound around it. So I think with the weeping wound card is that it's really just saying like, hey, we're here to express, we need to kind of share what it is that we have going on. Now this book is also extremely detailed, and I really do love kind of like diving into the book and looking at what it talks about as well, because again, this is a card that really is telling you like, hey, your wounds have not been receiving enough attention. It's like, you know, things have been happening, you know, you've just been going through the motions in some way. And, you know, wounds can stop bleeding once the pain has been known and released. You know, it's like, because then we allow the healing to truly actually begin. And I think that this is kind of saying like, while you may recognize and realize that there's a wound there, you haven't allowed yourself to really let it heal and do what it needs to do. And so this is almost saying like, hey, emotionally, psychologically, physically, spiritually, there's something that needs and is calling for your attention. And again, until those things are addressed, or until you give yourself the time and the space to really heal that, it's just going to be exposed, and more infection can happen. No true healing can really begin. And so I think that this is really saying like, maybe there's a lot of potential, your voice, your perception, your presence, maybe something that you're struggling with in some way, or maybe that's something that is challenging for you to really fully own and really step into. And so I think it's really saying like, start addressing whatever it is that is currently bleeding in your life. And that's kind of what I'm doing with this, is that I'm trying to address this wound within myself of being perceived and being seen. And so I know for a lot of us, you know, especially when it comes to matters of the heart, you know, sometimes we have a weeping wound when it comes to our relationships and our interpersonal connections with others. And I think that a lot of us, you know, we go around and we think, oh, I'm ready for this and I want this, and you know, I would love to do this. And slowly we recognize that maybe not everyone is ready to meet us where we're at, but then also how much hurt we're carrying in those relationships as well. And so I think that this is kind of telling you to give yourself permission to really prioritize taking care of yourself, especially with whatever is kind of a core wound that maybe is still like needing your attention and is still outstanding in some ways. And to kind of be compassionate with yourself, you know, kind of moving into that heart energy of being compassionate with yourself, listening to you without judgment. I know on my shadow work journey that I've been on for the last couple of years, I've had to really sit with myself and take time out to really look deep into these parts of myself that I didn't even recognize were things that were holding me back in some way. And again, by expressing that pain, by expressing that hurt, by expressing the things that we've gone through, or the painful kind of experiences that have held us back, we're able to you know, show other people that it's okay to be in this space and to kind of experience life the way that we have. Life isn't always kind and easy. We can make it so, but it's not always going to feel like it's just moving the way that we want it to. Now, next to that, finally, for the oracle cards that we have here is Born. So every day is a new opportunity. And I think it's interesting that we have like these shells, we have like this being that's almost like cooped in like, you know, the fetal position, very much like a child's kind of pose. And I think that this is almost saying like, there's a part of you that is willing and waiting to kind of show up and be born. Hopefully the flash isn't too bad. And every day is a new opportunity. Every day we get to choose how we want to show up in the world. Whether we are going to continuously start over and, feel inexperienced in the things that we have going on, or if we're going to really want to show up in that energy and do something different. Especially when it comes to what we have within ourselves that maybe is ready to kind of be expressed. And again, I think that being born is an opportunity to redefine who we are, what we think, and what we've been experiencing. So to me, the word born can also talk about releasing anything that maybe has been holding us back, whether it's, an opportunity to really start fresh and to not sit where we've been in. And I think that it's really saying like, hey, every day we get an opportunity to start fresh, to choose what it is that we want to do, to show up in new ways, and understanding that we're not here to just continuously do the same things and to go through the motions and to not show up. I'm going to have some coffee because my throat is starting to hurt, girl. So it is the morning here for me. I think it's also that recognition of showing up in ways that we need and not holding back as far as like what we should be doing and what it is that we really desire. So, and of course there's the cough. I have not been able to get rid of this little cough for some time now. So here we go. And I think the biggest thing is that to be born is to recognize that there's constant rebirth. I feel like it's very much like the death card kind of energy in some ways, and that it's saying like, hey, there's some transformation, there's something that's trying to shift, and it's going to feel uncomfortable in some ways, but you get to choose what it is that you want to grow moving forward, and to blow away any kind of obstacles that you feel have been keeping you stuck or have been keeping you from being able to achieve your highest good and the big parts of yourself that you want to grow into. When I think of the word born as well, I think that it's very much saying like when you start doing some of this hard work, this paying attention to where your anger is, really allowing yourself to be empowered once more, to deal with the wounds that maybe have held you back in some ways, to really start awakening your heart to how you feel. It is going to feel like a rebirth. And sometimes that process is a little bit challenging, or it can feel very uncomfortable. And I think that this is really asking you to kind of move into this next phase by giving yourself that grace too, to be like, I don't really know how to do this, and I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm going to try and I'm going to do something to kind of challenge myself and how I've been thinking about things. Now, hope that's making sense, and hopefully everything else is in frame. I can't tell. Hopefully it is. I didn't really double check, but I may move some cards over just to give myself some space. So hopefully this doesn't look too crazy. All right, very first card we pulled is the Devil, and what a beautiful card to receive for a shadow work reading, or for really recognizing where we are in shadow, because the Devil is really a card of what we've been chained to, where we have kept ourselves stuck. I think the Devil is also kind of saying like, where have you been willingly keeping yourself like, in patterns or in energies that really don't serve you, or in things that really are not good for you. Now, this to me is also the card of the aholic. So the workaholic, the sexaholic, the drug addict, the alcoholic, the workoutaholic, any sort of thing where like you feel like you've been doing too much of something or leaning too hard into a certain habit or a certain lifestyle or a certain kind of like aspect of who you are. This is definitely the card that kind of tends to come up. With it being a major card, it really does focus on these like big lessons. It's really saying like, hey, you're the one that has to kind of open yourself up to letting go of like the bondage that has kind of kept you stuck and where you've been. And in that, it's going to feel very challenging, because I know the Devil can be like a scary concept for people that have like either a Christian background or, whatever. And I think the devil is so much more than just like the scary figure of Baphomet, you know, kind of coming down and like making you make bad choices. I think the devil is really kind of talking about within yourself, where have you been kind of challenging yourself you know, not really like release yourself from the ties that have been binding you to things that maybe you're like, man, I'm really tired of being this way, or man, I've always been like this and it's been something that I'm just now comfortable in because that's just how things have always been. The devil is this kind of, it's almost like insidious. It's like sometimes we don't even recognize where we are kind of the devil in our own lives. And I think it's really recognizing and looking within yourself and saying, hey, I've been the one that's been keeping myself stuck in these patterns. And when I first started like my shadow work journey, I know there was like a lot of things where I don't want to say I was blaming everyone else, but I had a hard time looking at where I was an active participant in that behavior, or where I kind of was struggling to see why I kept having the same sort of like repeated patterns in particular sets of my relationships in my life. And then I would kind of struggle to kind of understand and be like, well, why do people treat me this way? I treat myself this way. It was my weeping wound. And the devil really goes with that. It's almost saying like, this is where your wound has been going. And the devil is really about learning how to empower yourself again by releasing those chains and really learning to master yourself and work past the cage that you've placed over your heart so that you can be born anew. So it really does kind of tie in with everything. I think it's beautiful. The next card we have, because I think I pulled them like this. I'm trying to do it like the right way because I did them wrong yesterday, but that's okay because everything happens the way that it needs to be, right? So strength. That again, this is a very Leo kind of energy to me, in the sense of it's very much this like, you know, learning how to control the beast within, so to speak. But I think strength is really talking about recognizing and realizing what your heart really needs and what it is that like really is pushing you forward. And I think it's interesting to get it underneath the devil, because it's almost saying like your strength is in releasing the bonds that have been keeping you stuck. And your strength has been developed because of these challenges, because of these things that maybe you've leaned into. And your strength is so much more powerful than you recognize. And you need to kind of move back into that energy and allow yourself to really shine. It's interesting as well because strength is also the card of 2024. And as we're like fully really kind of like moving into the actual like real energies of this year, I think that we're going to start to see that everything we've been through, everything that we've experienced and learned in just like the last few years is really going to gear us up and test our strength, in the sense of, I'm not saying it's going to give you situations that are going to challenge you to the point to where you don't really know what you're doing, but I think it's more of just like recognizing like, oh man, a few years ago that would have really have tripped me up, or that really would have kept me stuck. Now I know how to maneuver past these things. I know how to grow past this. I know that at the end of this, I will be more than what I really need. And these are both major cards. So it may feel like these are the two things within ourselves. And in traditional tarot, this is usually like a maiden, you know, that has like her mouth and like the jaws of a lion. And maybe with the devil, it's almost saying like, this is maybe how you feel at times, where you're having to kind of like face your fear of like, you know, who would put their hands in the mouth of a lion, right? And I think it's really saying like, you know, recognize your strength and understand that everything that you've been through, good and bad, has allowed you to understand different parts of yourself. But by, you know, really connecting to the heart and what your heart really needs, everything else will come together a lot easier, and it will not feel as much of a challenge. Now, next to that, I have the Chariot, which is the card of last year, actually, of 2023. The Chariot, this is also the card of like Cancer. So I feel it's very much this energy of like looking at like the movement, the momentum, the things that were like, we're ready to kind of go. I've aligned myself with my energies. I know exactly what I need. I'm going to like get into it. I'm going to do the damn thing. And the Chariot to me is also this like sense of really looking at, it doesn't matter what the road looks like, I will overcome it and I will keep going. And so sometimes it can feel very much, especially on your shadow work journey, like you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I feel more broken than when I started, or I feel like this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And I think with the Chariot, it's kind of saying like, yes, right now you may feel this way, but by allowing yourself to really nurture and take care and connect to the intuitive parts of yourself and that emotional heart, this is going to be what propels you forward. It gives you that direction. It gives you that momentum to really show up and not stay stuck in these old patterns. And again, it's another major card. So it is really saying like you choosing to take care of these things now and to prioritize these parts of yourself, whether it's, you know, I don't want to continuously have the same sort of relationships and connections that feel blocked. And I don't want to be tied down to my anger any longer because it's just been chaining me to things that no longer connect me to my heart and don't really allow me to look at things as like a new opportunity to really show up. I think that this is kind of saying like that is that little trifecta of you really understanding your strength so that you can release the bondage and then you can have that momentum to really move into the things that you really want that feel a little bit more connected to you emotionally and spiritually. And I think I drew this card yesterday, so maybe we're just in this Three of Wands kind of energy. And I think the Three of Wands is really this, I think it's like a push. It's kind of telling you like, hey, you need to get out there. You need to expand your horizons. You need to look at what it is that maybe has been keeping you stuck, or maybe there's like a significance with, you know, understanding that our communication and our connections with others can be passion driven without it being something that keeps you bonded to them in a way that is negative for you. And so I feel like it's very much about like finding your community, finding the people that love you, finding how to connect to them in different ways that feels a little bit more receptive, more open, because to me wands are very much this like energy of like driving forward, of passion, of fire, of, you know, really like a spiritual kind of like energy that comes with it. And I think this is almost saying like lean on your spiritual team, lean on the people that show up to kind of guide you through some of these hard lessons so that you're not feeling so stuck and you're not feeling kind of kept where you've been. And I think this being underneath the Chariot, it's almost saying like find what lights your fire so that you can continuously move forward. And then to kind of support everything off to the side, we have the Four of Coins, which is interesting because to me this is a card of saying like there's like a firm foundation that you're trying to establish in some ways, but maybe it doesn't feel very, it feels a little mundane. It's not going to feel very easy. And that's the thing with shadow work, is that some people might think it's like this big grandiose thing, and sometimes it's as easy as just like sitting with yourself and journaling about how you feel about something that you experienced that day, or what was something that maybe came up that you were like, oh man, I should really ask myself like really truly how I feel about that, or I should really process like what's going on with that. And I think with the Four of Coins is that it's really trying to bring everything together and kind of build stability before you kind of deal with the conflict that tends to come with the Five of Pentacles or Five of Coins, which is where you're feeling alone. And so it's almost saying like by establishing your foundation and by connecting with yourself and like really physically taking care of you and reconnecting to how you are and what you prioritize, because Pentacles are like the earthly kind of domain of things. So we can talk about our worldly possessions, our physical bodies, our work, our finances. It's almost saying like you've been so maybe focused on some of these things that you're kind of forgetting that by having that you can do some of this work. And for a lot of us, we don't get an opportunity to focus on the shadow work until we have this handled. And I think this is almost saying like, so maybe allow this kind of lull or this kind of moment right now that maybe feels a little bit boring or a little bit, again, kind of mundane, or like things are not really like shifting and moving the way that you want them to. It's you're building the foundation. Building the foundation and making sure it's stable is never going to feel very like fun. and fancy free, so to speak. It is kind of boring work, and I think it's almost recognizing and saying you have to kind of prioritize building that foundation for yourself and taking care of that. Now, hopefully all of this is kind of making sense. I'm going to pull from this like gentle reminder deck that I have. And so it's saying it's safe for me to feel my feelings. And that is very much all what shadow work really is. It's telling you that it's okay for you to feel how you feel and to connect to that energy in ways that give yourself that space, right? To really say, it is okay for me to do this. It's okay for me to show up in this. And I'm valid in how I feel. And I don't have to explain how that feels for anybody else. I don't have to validate it to anybody else. And I think by just kind of reminding yourself of that, it can be very liberating. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully I will challenge myself to do something tomorrow as well. I'm going to try to post a few videos a week. I would like to say I would like to do one every day, but I know myself and I know I will probably struggle with that. But if you enjoyed these, please, leave a comment, let me know. If there's any questions that you have about anything that I talked about, please feel free to reach out and let me know. Thank you. Take care. Stay safe. And as always, make good choices.